Alrighty. Hello, everyone. Welcome to eo120 Talks Esports. Today, I actually have not a coach or anyone uh, in the competitive area, but I have on Kaizen, formerly known as Primal, actually. I saw you put out that tweet, I think 18 hours ago, that you're dropping the moniker and just going by Kaizen, which is that like your birth name or something like that?
It's not my birth name. It is my legal name.
Oh,
So
nice.
I actually picked the name this year. So I used to be named Derek. That's my birth name, and Derek is my middle name. But I've chosen Kaizen, which means continual improvement in Japanese, which is like such a gamer thing to do. Now that I
that,
think about
that,
it.
yeah, yeah,
I
that,
am, I'm a bit of a weeb, but I was not looking for a Japanese. The name just really resonated with me because if I think about anything that is my master value in life, it's growth and continuous improvement. And I came across the name a pivotal point in my life when I was just doing a lot of self work on dealing with depression and mental health, and I had some awakening experience, if you will.
mhm.
And yeah, one of the outputs of that was that I chose a new name for my Kaizen's my name.
No, I totally get that actually. We were talking before the podcast. I was telling you I used to live out in Florida, and one of the major reasons that basically my wife and I decided to move out here is because I'd been there for almost 30 years. So complacency breeds the worst. So that's why we moved like we did. So I can really respect just kind of putting that mindset like into into your verbal blood, I guess you could say, your name. So that's pretty dope, actually.
Yeah, someone
Where
described it to me as like almost like a tattoo. It's almost like getting a tattoo, your name, and it always struck me as kind of weird that it's your name, but you
mm-hmm,
don't really pick it, or you can pick it, but it's seldom that people do. And
mm-hmm,
then now having gone through the process, it's involved, right?
yeah,
Um, and I'm sure there are some cultures in the world where children pick their own name, but yeah, that's what I did.
I can't say I've heard of any, but I'm definitely I'm definitely about people taking agency of their life and responsibility for their life, and if they can make that happen in like a metaphorical way or even just a legal way, with just name changing. That feels pretty awesome, pretty powerful. Was Primal just originally just a gamer name that you picked when you were just playing RuneScape back in the day, like the rest of us? Or
No, so when I was playing RuneScape, I had this name. I was into Yu-Gi-Oh at the time, and do you remember Malik from Yu-Gi-Oh?
I think I'd have to
Okay.
see I'd have to look. Let me see. Go ahead, keep going, keep going.
Yeah, so when I played RuneScape, I don't know, I just thought Malik was like the coolest shit ever. So I picked the name Prince Malik, but I either forgot the C or I had a typo, so it was Prime. So I was Prime Malik in RuneScape. Uh, And just the other day, I was literally talking to someone about, hey, I should like play RuneScape again because apparently it's going through some sort of renaissance. I wonder if my old account's still around. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that was a gamer name, and then Primal actually came from when I would go. One of my hobbies is going to music festivals, and I've been to a lot of them now. And this is not a music festival, but I went to Burning Man 2 years
Hmm.
ago,
Yeah.
and when I go to music festivals, I have this little alter ego, this primal alter ego. It's like pretty crazy. I wear like war paint and like have
Hmm.
this beard and all this stuff. And when I was there, one of the things they do at Burning Man is get what's called a playa. Playa is like the area of the desert that you're in.
Hmm.
And yeah, I was talking to someone, and they asked me like, why do you do this whole dress get up? And I was like, because I'm often in my head, and I want to be out of my head and my more primal nature. And they're like, I have your Burning Man primal playa name. It's Primal. I was like, oh, I like that name.
Yeah.
So I started using it for games because uh, before Primal, I was Feargorn, and I wasn't like looking for a new name, but I was like Primal. I feel like it fits me more. It's easier to remember. It's catchier. So I picked Primal. So many name changes in my life, right? So I went to Primal, and then I've been going by Kaizen Primal Seadu because I changed my legal real name and my gamer name. And then recently I was like, why do I have this Primal thing? Kaizen's a great name. It represents what I want to say. So I'm gonna change my name. So I dropped Primal. I'll still use it for I guess Burning Man and stuff like this,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
everywhere else I'm just Kaizen.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate with the going primal whenever they find something that releases them. I can personally relate to that, and that whenever I have something that is a distinct vacation or like a distinct concert that I know I can go into. Frankly, I like mosh pitting, like the safer mosh pitting, just jumping around, bumping on bodies.
Yeah.
That's one of the few physical interactions these days that I could find where, as someone who thinks and is planning and responsible all the time, it's like, okay, I have this time period in this space where my responsibilities are like very small. It's like, don't die and don't break anyone else, you know. So
Yeah,
so
I
I
get it, dude.
yeah, that's pretty awesome. I went, speaking of just, I went to Okeechobee Music Festival, like the very first one way back in Florida. So I want to do eventually, like go to Burning Man for like purpose. I think I've got an uncle that goes there like every year. So so I want to actually bring in this intro that I've been trying to formulate in my head, for why I thought interviewing you would be in service to the community, but it's also in service to just my natural interest. Is that I've been watching LCS, I've been watching League, the pro scene and all that, since way back. Like I was there when Piglet was disappointing everyone for years on Team Liquid. Bjergsen was coming in, smacking cheeks. I was there when Dyrus retired, with that legendary interview. And so this year comes in, and this Primal guy is just on my analyst desk. I'm like, okay, who is this guy? Like, who is this guy? Like, I know who Emily Rand is. I've heard her mentioned a bunch from Jacob Young or Thorne or whatnot. But so who is this Primal guy? Like, where is he coming? He feels like he's coming out of left field into the League community. And so, like, I want to be the welcoming side of it. Like, Reddit can go die in a dumpster. So, like, where does Kaizen Primal at the time? Where does this guy come from? Um, and for at least for what I had, I thought you earned your stripes throughout at least the spring season. For like, okay, this guy is legitimate on the disc, but like, bring me into like relevant past, perhaps into pitch meeting or something like that, and then into I'm on the desk, I've got this responsibility, if that's even how you framed it, and I'm gonna make make this work. Like, let's go.
Sure. Yeah. So one of my things I would have done differently. No regrets, but things I would have done differently is I probably should have just done an AMA or video intro. Like, here's who I am, and here's why I'm not just some like random guy that picked up off the street. But I didn't do that, so I've been doing this in interviews here and there, just talking about my background. So without going like way back, I've been in League of Legends since I guess 2010, 2011. And it started just as a player. So I was just a guy who really enjoyed the game, played the game at a pretty high level, was Grandmaster or equivalent to Grandmaster back then because there wasn't Grandmaster. Almost reached Challenger. Was a one-trick Hecarim player. I had like the most Hecarim games in the world or something close to it, up there with some Korean guy. And I just loved the game. I loved playing the game. I loved watching the game. I fell in love with CLG off of like watching them play, and also I think the first exposure I had to CLG, just like as people, was OGs remember Chowster had this like super long forum thread where he would just answer questions about the game. I was like, whoa, this guy's like so cerebral and so smart about the
Yeah.
game. And over time, I just became a fan of the whole team. And I also, prior to that, I had been really into StarCraft 2. So I was a Masters level Protoss player, super into the esports scene there. And I moved over to League of Legends just because my friends stopped playing StarCraft as much, started playing with League of Legends. At first, I thought it was some like, casual game. Started playing it, loved it. Rest is history. In somewhere in that whole mix, I actually started a company that would produce esports tournaments. So the company was called Well Played Productions, and we started off by producing online StarCraft 2 tournaments. Those gained a lot of, I guess, fame and legitimacy in the StarCraft community. And then we started producing events for other organizers. So we did stuff with MLG, we produced an IPL event, etc. I left that behind because I was just dealing with a lot of stuff in college, just like really depressed, not in a good headspace, and I just sort of like exited. I was like, I'm out, disappeared off the face of the bat. Like, friends didn't hear from me from a year. Not super good. As I started to recover, I was like, okay, well, what do I want to do with my life? I enjoy games. I've played games my whole life. I've been super into esports. I've some modicum of skills from having put together esports tournaments myself, and I was actually a moderator for the StarCraft subreddit for a while too. And I had a friend, his name's Janook, and he worked at Riot himself. And he was like, "Hey, I think you should consider applying for like an internship," because I was still in school. I was like, "Okay, yeah, sure. This sounds like it could at least be interesting." I was gonna go into investment banking or something, and I was like, "That doesn't really feel right for me. So let me give my passion a try." So I applied for an internship at Riot esports team. I was one of the first two interns. Got in, absolutely loved it, and they gave me an offer to come back. So I finished my last year of school. I was at Harvard studying philosophy at the time, and I was like, okay, well, we're done with this philosophy degree. I want to go do video game stuff. So I was at Riot for 7 years. I did a variety of things, including starting off league ops. So I did league operations, tournament design, policy, discipline, that kind of stuff for North America and global teams. So I would work on stuff like the import rule or getting players unbanned who were banned because we used to just do perma-ban. So I put in place an appeals process so Jensen and these other people could get off of the ban list. So felt good about that kind of work. Did that for some years. Worked on things like playing Worlds format, etc. Then I started producing events at Riot. So I started to lead the strategy and vision for these events and branding for these. So the first event I led was the 2016 Mrs. Invitational in Shanghai, and that was the one that CLG did super well at. So very special event in my heart. That was the one where they had the USA jersey as well.
Yeah.
I wore that jersey on broadcast. I still have it. Has my old summoner name on it, Fear Gore. And I produced that event, right, like what I did. So then I started leading world championships. So the first world championship I led production of was the 2017 World Championship. And I did that. That was the first event that we did at that scale in China. So that was sort of like when esports was really starting to pop off into mainstream consciousness. That went super well. Then I started running the global team. So I ran the team that did the Mid-Season Invitational, World Championship, and All-Star event. So I did that for a period of time. And then by that point, I had been at Riot for 7 years. And I was sort of figuring out like what's my next step at Riot. Somewhere along the line that time, like I think it was 2019, I fell in love with TFT, and I didn't know what I wanted to do next. There was some discussion of maybe leading the TFT esports team or something, but I kind of felt like if I'd stayed at Riot, even in a different role, I would be staying in my comfort zone, and something in me just instinctually knew I needed to leave and find myself a bit, and find like, what do I want to do with my life? Because this is fun, but I feel like I'm doing this because it's familiar.
Well, it almost sounds like you'd peak too. If you're the lead sort of production designer or whatnot, if you want, I didn't catch the official title, but if you're leading the production design and whatnot for the world championship multiple times, it sounds like the Papa Smithy conundrum of I've peaked in terms of this craft, in terms of leading these people, leading a team, doing a job. Am I interpreting that right? So like,
I think there's a sense in which it's peaked, but I think with these sorts of things, there's always better you can do.
yeah, because it's a much more creative venture. It's far more creative elements. Yeah,
because the thing is, when I say production, it's more all encompassing. Production is just for it because you're thinking about stuff like what should the format of the tournament be, what should the prize pool be, what should our music video look like, then other stuff like what cities should we be in, how do we work with local governments to bring those events in, what should our budget be. And I think I was okay at the job, but like I didn't have like years of experience. I would say I was far from like peaking at it.
Okay.
It was just more I guess I'm intuitive in some ways about what I need for myself in life, and I just felt restless. And I've had a few times in my life where I felt restless, and then that usually precedes a pretty dramatic change. So I left, and I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but for now, let me focus on just playing TFT professionally. That would be a cool thing to like scratch off my bucket list, because I've played games my whole life. One of my minor regrets is that I didn't like make a serious run at going pro in League. Not that to say I would have been good enough, but I was playing with pros. Even though I was a one trick, I was like, okay, maybe I could have made it. That wasn't the headspace I was in college. I was like, Well, TFT I was even better at than I was at the League of Legends. I reached Challenger in TFT multiple times. So I left right before COVID. So I think April like 1st was my last day. Yeah, Riot Games, and I played TFT. I played in tournaments. I even won one tournament, which was cool, and then sucked the rest. But it's okay. It's okay. At least I was in the tournaments. Um, and I produced content. I was streaming. I did that for the majority of last year. Um, Parallel with that path was just my whole spiritual journey, and dealing with my psyche and just a lot of unresolved stuff that kept me back from just being happy, in life. That wasn't going to change no matter what my external circumstances were. Right? It's not about changing a job or changing where you live or changing your partner or any of these stuff. You need to get right in your spirit, and I didn't know that at the time. That was the last thing on my mind, but I've talked about this on Twitter, but I had an experience with ayahuasca, which is a plant medicine that originates in the Amazon. That active ingredients is DMT, and it's used in a ritualistic fashion, and it just completely broke me up and changed my life several times over. And somewhere along that transition point, I stopped doing the pro gaming thing because I was super burned out, and I was like, this is not the path for me. And I started commentating TFT. So I commentated the TFT North American Championship and then the TFT World Championship. So that was my first time on camera on someone else's production. So Riot saw that, people at Riot had worked with me before, so they knew what kind of person I am, and I think like my work ethic, knew I was like a super fan. I was like the guy at work who I did like company presentations and I wore the CLG jersey. My icon in Slack was the CLG logo, and we had like a banter channel, and I was like always shit post.
Yeah,
no. It's kind of crazy that I got away with it.
You would be the passionate. You're the passionate grunt, not just the grunt that gets the work done.
Yeah, and people liked it, right? Because like if you're gonna work at Riot, you better be into the stuff you're making, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, they knew who I was, and even though I didn't have like a huge public profile, because my path was very non-traditional relative to a lot of honored personalities. They took a bet because they're like, we think you bring something unique, a unique energy, and story and set of interests. So yeah, they recruited me to the team. I was like, sure, let's give it a try. And I started in January, and I've been doing that ever since.
I like that because I feel like you went up, like, because I think in the layman's mindset, you were somewhere like the top echelon or something like. And I understand what you're saying about you were competent at your job, but you definitely were like some master craftsman, like Papa was in casting. But you were good at your job at least, and it was either a peak, but it wasn't a mountain worth climbing all the way up on. Like sometimes you get the good view, you get that soreness, the just enough like cut on your fingers to go, I've accomplished something here. Like it's not the gold medal, but I've done something here. There's value in competing and trying and doing something. And if you want to categorize it as a fail, that's fine. But I will take the successful elements of this, even the learning of the failure, and now you've ended up dropping in some production mindset. Now you're just on the desk. Like it's someone might categorize that as like, and fall from grace. Now you're on the desk. Now you have to do that. But I find that really, it feels like the CEO became like, the middle management or like the janitor or something like that. But they're humble about everything. Like at least that's the vibe that I get about it. It's like I'm doing work, I'm doing a job, I'm doing it well, and I'm willing to take the challenge. So like my metaphor may be undercutting to someone who's going to mischaracterize it, but that's what I get the sense of. You're just like, wherever I'm at is where I'm at, and this is where I'm going to try. So
the way I think of it is, I think of life as, it's a non-linear, iterative, repeating game where, a lot of what you're trying to do is pick the right long-term games that are going to produce long-term positive emotions or happiness, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it's really important that I'm doing something, right? Like, for instance, in college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. The source of a lot of angst. So, yeah, for me, my life has just always been getting to the core of what do I authentically want to do, right? So, and I find that the way my mind works is it very much veers me toward those things if I'm not in a. So, for example, I wasn't thinking about going to, even though I loved games as an industry,
Mm-hmm.
and life sort of just pulled me into it. Like, the plan was not to go to Harvard, get a philosophy degree, and then go to work at Riot Games.
Yeah.
I didn't know what the plan was, but that wasn't okay. Let me go make a bunch of money on Wall Street or something, right? And I'm really, really glad I didn't do that because that would not have been at all. Then, at Riot, it's like, okay, I started to do it as a generalist. That's what interns do, and then I got pulled into league ops, which made sense for me because I think very abstractly, and I like big picture stuff, and crafting policy and global policy is what fun for me. Then I started getting drawn into events, and events are cool. It's like I like creating experiences for people. I like creating experiences for people in my personal life, and I like doing it as a profession. And then a big thing for me is I just find that I don't love the idea of working at a company. I never really viewed myself as someone who would be at a company for most of my life. Not that there's anything inherently wrong, but I always see someone it's more entrepreneurial or more independent freelance doing his own thing. So I got pulled in that direction again, right? So this part of my journey, I don't know where it goes. Honestly, I was like when I got this commentating role, wow, like I don't know I don't know if this is something I want to be doing for like the next 20 years of my life. But I know it's a space that I'm passionate about, and I think it's a platform to reach people in a way that I don't think people are generally used to being reached, right? And honestly, the message I kind of want to spread is not so much about like the game analysis. I think these things are fun. They're like play for me. But what I want to actually do is help people change themselves for the better, because I think there's a lot of negativity in the gaming community. People just having like trauma, the trauma of just like life, and what you find is that in online communities where everyone's anonymous and you're dealing with people as strangers and everything's kind of dehumanized, things get exaggerated. And I know for me, when I was really into League of Legends, I was also really depressed. I'm not saying I was depressed because of League of Legends, but it's the outlet I saw. And I won't lie, like I was toxic at times too. I remember I got banned for a week and I was like, oh, okay, this is like a reality check. Like I should not, like what the hell am I doing? And I've grown myself and I've changed myself a lot. So yeah, I'm in a constant process of self-discovery. I've changed a ton, especially in the last 10 years. I expect to continue to change, but I think what I like about this role as a commentator is it allows me to help other people change and reach people. So yeah.
Yeah, because I treat where, especially with just how I think NA is trying to figure itself out or get itself in a positive light for international competition in all the crazy ways that everyone tries to figure out how to do that. I see the role of at least the AD desk, everyone that's on the AD desk, as like you're critical to sort of defining these narratives or helping try to mold these major narratives that are either going to crush players, crush teams, build players, build teams, or maybe even make the community look at itself as like, hey, you're being trash, or hey, you need to keep doing that. And I think that's what ends up having me like I've had this hashtag that I've been running with for years because I was a much bigger fan early on in the years. I didn't really care too much about Double Lift or Bjergsen um I'm a Cutie Pie or anything. I always cared much more about Jat, Kobe, all the casters, and Rivington. Like I believe that the entertainer part is it like hashtag casters carry games has been a hashtag of mine that I just like to put out there because whenever games weren't broadcasted or didn't have any production behind them, just even a caster over them, I was like, I actually can't watch this. Like I've learned in doing a little casting with friends is that I'm the play-by-play guy. I can understand the concepts and identify the micro pieces. Like in game, I become like the color caster. I become the guy that's like very specific about every single movement or item or whatnot. But watching a game, no, I need to put that thing up to like 2x so I can just like try to see the bigger movements. So I'm trying to get back to the original point thing. So you being on the desk is like okay, and I really appreciate you coming on for this. those on the desk are the ones that help to define, and the voices in the games, they help to get to define sort of everything else and shape this out. So I think the question that then comes into, because I think you had a very open mind when you were given the offer to become a part of the AD desk. Did you have any distinct goals, or did you guys, or did even you guys form any distinct goals for narrative adjustments, for tonal adjustments, for making, because not to say you need to start having rap battles like the LEC and stuff, but there is something to be said about like what did you think and believe or try to push or have pushed to elevate just even the broadcast side of the LCS?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how successful I've been at it. That's for other people to judge. But I know for me personally, I just want us to be a community that actually loves itself. Like, I feel like there's this really, really toxic complex that we have in NA around the success of our region or lack thereof that I feel like has only worsened over time. Around just like it's like cool to like shit on our own region. And there's a difference between saying, hey, you can be critical, right? Of saying, hey, like this needs to, that needs to improve. But I don't know. I can't. I'm sure maybe there is a sports community, but I can't think of a sports community in any sport where fans are just so harsh toward their own region, right? Like if you look at, let's say, I'm not like a soccer guy. You look at soccer, right? There's hundreds of nations competing, right? Not all the nations are going to be the best, right? But like I'm Ghanaian. My parents are from Ghana, right? But like no one's talking in Ghana talking about, wow, Ghana soccer sucks. Like it's so damn bad and like flaming the team. Not to the extent, right? Like this toxic fan culture everywhere, but I think it's particularly pronounced and almost the identity of NA at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really problematic. And I think just like it's okay to just like enjoy what's in front of you. It's okay to just enjoy the fact that you're witnessing the best of America. Full stop. You don't have to compare it to like it's the best of North America, but not as good as Korea, China, Europe, right? And objectively, North America is top 4, right? Maybe you could argue, Hong Kong, Taiwan, etc.
Yeah.
Is sometimes above, but top 4 out of I don't know how many regions there are formally right now. I know there's 13. Maybe it's 12 now. That's not bad. It's not bad. We've made runs to MSI finals, etc. I think the expectations are higher, and I think fine. Of course, you want your region to be the absolute best, but at the same time, like it's okay. It's like it would be like it'd be like having a dinner with your family and then being like, yeah, well, I had a better meal at my friend's house. And it's like, okay, like we get it. Let's enjoy this meal right in front of us. Yeah. And ultimately, games and sports is about fun, right? And I think there's a lot of negativity that has honestly been. I don't know if lionized is the right word, but for no better word is coming to me right now. But we sort of lionize destructive criticism. And like scoffing at the play we have, and even when we have like a banger game, I'm like, okay, one man's banger is another man's fiesta, but like, can we just enjoy the damn game? Like, it's meant to be entertainment at the end.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that is, I don't know, that's pretty important to me. Just like express enthusiasm for what's going on, right? It's just like a fan, and I think the other thing I know as a team, what we want to do is just bring pride and joy to the LCS, right? Because it means something to be the best player in North America. Like that's no joke, right? Like it means something that someone's in the LCS. That's hard. Like anyone who's played League of Legends should know it's really, really hard. And from my limited experience, like playing with pro people, I was when I would get to the point where I was like high elo, and I would play with a mixture of like solo queue gods and LCS players. Like I would notice when an LCS player was playing, they were really, really good. Like I noticed that just the way they approached the game was just different. I was like, whoa, this guy's like, I might be at the same MMR as this guy, but I'm not as good as this guy.
Yeah, you can see their body language and their character just somehow communicate. Like they're thinking across the map while they're just handling, a minion wave under tower.
It's just different. And these guys have only gotten better, time. I mean, the last time I was. So, yeah, I think that's worth honoring. You know, that like these guys are, you know, at a peak in our sport. Is it the absolute peak? You know, is it like, are they winning world championships? No, not yet.
Mm-hmm.
Are they relevant? I think so. You know, so that's what I would personally love to see, and I think what we're trying to do with hero building and narrative. And at the same time, you know, there's a balance to be struck, because at the end of the day, I think of myself as a commentator, right? So I provide commentary on the game. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a caster, but I provide commentary on the game.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people, they think, oh, well, it's Analyst Desk, so you're supposed to be providing hard analysis and on these things. And for me, I'm just not like the micro, or I'm not the micro guy. Like, I'm not the guy talking about like, you know, specific mechanics between, you know, like how to, you know, how to CC someone properly with Rel. I think those things are interesting, but it's not what I grab toward, and it's not what I authentically engage with in League of Legends with. I mean, I was a one trick. I played one champion, and I was just kind of an intuitive player.
Just had your Q button just taped down, and
yeah, I was like, I'll just Hecarim, press Q, press E, good stuff. And this was before Hecarim was popular, and yeah, so, you know, the way I experienced the game was mostly as someone who's just like really enthusiastic than these other things, and that's why I think it's good that we have a balance, right? Like, we have the people super cerebral about the game, and they, you know, they got the spreadsheets out. You know, you want to have a diverse array of interests.
Yeah. It almost sounds like, so there's been an idea put out that instead of trying to frame out our league as something that should be like hanging out with the upper echelons of like the world community, that like we should be framing us out as like an entertainment region. And I think that could actually even be too far in another end of pick up like a spectrum. But I think and you know, expand on this, but I think you're almost promoting, it's like, where are we, what are we, and now let's add the entertainment. Like, let's stop like trying to frame something that's, because yeah, there's a concept I got from a famous psychologist where it's like you almost need to aim really low with your goals when you start, just so you can start building momentum. Because if you aim too high too early, you will fail hard, you will become dejected, and it's a dark way down. It's a dark way to go from there. So set your expectations, set your goals between realistically and almost too low, just so you can start making those steps up. And I think that you would almost agree with that idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think of it. I think the relationship with expectations is a tricky one, because I think of it less as like, I mean, I'm not the players, right? So like, although they should have really, really high expectations for them, my expectation is just that they play their best, and we as a broadcast team present them in as best a light as possible, and we all have some fun, you know? And obviously, if my favorite team or my favorite region does well in the event, fuck yeah, you know? But I'm not about to hop on Twitter and blaming people for not performing at the level that they were hoping they perform at their job, for not doing so. You know? Nor am I interested in souring the well for everyone by like just being needlessly negative, right, about what I'm seeing out of, you know, these teams and these, you know, this league that I care about. So yeah, I don't know. Like, I think it's not even so much about. I think be realistic, right? We're top 4, right? So what do I expect? I expect the top 4 performance. If we were to bomb out at play-in, that would suck, right? That wouldn't be as fun, right? But that's part of the drama that makes sports interesting as well, to have aberrations from the expected result. And I think that's okay. We can just leave it there, right? And what we should obviously be supportive, right? So that our players, like the role we serve as, you know, let's talk about just players and this fans generally, right? Because everyone on the broadcast team is in a way, right? Our role is to create a supportive an environment as possible for these kids who are following their dreams to do that. That's fucking it. Just be a fan. It's not about like, you know, you can provide constructive feedback, of course, right? But it's not about like stating the obvious in the most negative way possible. They're humans at the end, right? And we've heard multiple. I know that by stating today is like, well, yeah, it's great being the LCS, but I wish things weren't so, right? And like, doesn't that suck? Like, isn't the point of games to have fun, right? Like, how do we get to the point where enjoying games is yet another outlet for negativity? And honestly, like, I see where it comes from, right? Because like, as someone who, I'm not gonna say I was like a toxic player, or I had my bad moments, but I wasn't like constantly inting games like that. But everyone has their bad moments. The negativity that I would pour out occasionally in games was because I had that negativity in my own life, right? Like, you are what you do, right? And if you're hostile toward other people, it's probably because you're hostile to yourself. It's probably because the self-talk you have is super fucking hard, right? And that doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means you're a person with work to do, right? Because that's life. We all have been through shit, and we create short and long-term coping mechanisms. Some of them are effective and productive and pro-social and constructive, and some of them are not, right? And then you find outlets and ways to deal with your shit, right? But becoming an adult is about recognizing your shit and realizing that the way to deal with your shit is not to pass it on, but to clear it out, right? And if you clear it out, it's easy to be a good person, right? It's easy to be positive. Because when we just say just be positive, what does that mean? It's like really hard for some, right? Some people, they don't exist in a positive headspace, so they can't just. I see this all the time on Twitter. Like, you have like reply guys, people who reply all the time to like every one of your tweets, and they're like kind of like negative, right? And I don't generally track that many people in my Twitter feed like that, but I have a few people occasionally. It's like they're like needlessly cynical. It's not like outright toxic, in which case I just block. I'm like, I don't have time for this stuff. I'm a grown ass. But needlessly cynical. I'm like, there's a good chance that like they're kind of a cynic about their own life, and that's like kind of sad, right? And what I would personally like to do is like serve and help them get to a more positive, because we all deserve to have a good, happy life. And I think happy people project happiness, right?
Yeah.
So it's not as easy as just saying be fucking positive, right?
Yeah, no, that's the classic thing with like depressed people is like stop being sad. It's like, well, you need to probably start with some good steps of like dietary, physical activity. Are you, have you chosen to have healthy relationships? Do you actually like, I don't know, encourage yourself to just be better? Like, I don't know, you can throw in some classic like military advice of just clean up your room or something like that. Like make something beautiful, and build that, build those cornerstones of quality in your life. It's like, that's mine. I made it better, and I can make other things better. So sweet.
And part of it starts with the belief that you can change yourself. I don't think a lot of people, like, maybe if you ask someone, it's like, oh, of course I know, right? But it's a fundamental belief that you can change dramatically, right? And it doesn't take long. It doesn't have to take long, right? It's about iterative work every single day. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to stand.
Yeah, life's a grind. Then all I'm sitting there thinking then is trying to make sure I frame that EG game from this weekend in the entertainment light. Because we can make a pivot on over there just to talk some games, because I think we're good to just sort of chill talk games, and then let me know when you need to get on out of here, of course. But yeah, that EG game, I remember watching that and thinking like, I think I Will Dominate's gonna have his head explode because that was the most mad rush on a base that ended so sadly.
Which game are we talking about? The FlyQuest game?
I think it was the EG FlyQuest game where they go at where they're winning and they run them into their fountain, but they all die, and they forgot the last Nexus tower, so they couldn't attack the Nexus, and then they all die, and FlyQuest just get to go back and just win the game.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it like they made a really bad mistake. That's what humans do sometimes, right? Like you have errors, and the better teams are the ones that tend, right? Because their practice is better, because their neurochemistry is better, because who the fuck knows, right? But that's the fun part, that people make mistakes, and sometimes it explodes in spectacularly hilarious way, right? Yeah. So I look at the EG game, I'm like, yeah, they fucked up super hard. Like, that's funny. Okay, let's move on. Like, hope they get better and learn from this. No big deal.
Yeah.
Just trying to have a good time.
Oh yeah, no.
And FlyQuest is great, and it's great on the other side. It's great that like hung in long enough right? For variance to just work in their favor. Because over the long run, EG's going to make a mistake, and then we just need to hang on long enough for them to make a mistake and then capitalize. So on
Yeah.
the side of every throw is a catch, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that's the classic thing that like at least Perks and G2 identified is that there's a lot of mistakes that we make, a lot of throws we make that never get caught in LEC. And then you go
Yeah.
international and it's like, oh, we were throwing there and we never knew. So I think that's just the highlight, like anti-play from this past weekend. I'm just
Yeah, it was funny. It was funny.
that was
I mean,
fantastic.
the base race call was good, but then they topped them. Flag question.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
So I think the other thing I could just try to ask you because I'm trying to actually catch up with some other coaches or teams to sort of talk how they're feeling with their start of the split. But do you have any teams that you really felt like have come in and like really performed well and you're like at least you're really excited about? I know you're a big CLG fan and lover, and this weekend wasn't a good start for them, but
No, it was not. It was not. I think Immortals has looked way better than I expected.
mm,
Yeah, I think the way they look better is look way more cohesive,
mm,
right? Like before, there were some interesting moments. Revenge solo killing Alfari, and then you have, Raze and Destiny popping off on the Blitzcrank game and the Vayne game from last year. But they still just kind of look a little bit disjointed.
mm,
Like they just didn't look like they were on the same page. Collection of solid players, but not they didn't really have that cohesion and force of intention that you would expect from. But they look like a team now. They look like a team that understands what they're all supposed to do and all fit into their role. And you don't have situations where Revenge is like trying to hard carry on the other part of the map, or same thing with Raze and Destiny. They get into mid game, they're doing things like sweeping two men top or bot to pick off people who are split pushing. They cut off vision really effectively. I know Destiny that was baiting a ward and the tilt. So I love the new look that they have, and because it also looks like a sustainable. Like it wasn't like they want some games or
yeah,
they were like behind and then suddenly fucked up and took the game from there. They were really like solid wins. So I
yeah.
like how Immortals looked, and Dignitas continues to be really. I feel like
Start that again.
we keep.
Start that
Oh, I was
again.
saying
But
Dignitas. I think continues to be fun and impressive. It's hard because we talk about the contender and pretender on broadcast, and I feel like I sound like needlessly bearish on Dignitas. I don't think they're a contender, but for me, again, contender is like, do I think this team is going to be top three at the end of the split? I think obviously it's possible, but I don't think they're likely, or I
mm,
think it's more likely than not.
yeah.
But that I think it's still really successful. Like I thought their last split was successful. Ended up with them kind of getting blown out. That sucked, but I think relative to expectations, they were pretty successful. And I think they bring a unique style that makes the league just a lot more entertaining. And I'm really, really happy that they're doing so well. And personally, as someone who's been a fan of Dardoch for a while, I see this kid. He's like super talented, but he's like still a kid, right? So he still does like kid stuff that kids do, and
Mm,
I don't know if he has like a difficult, upbringing or stuff. If there's a lot of shit working for him, I'm like, wow, but I can see, like, I see him in interviews. I'm like, dude, this guy's he's such a smart, like, thoughtful person when he's like all there. And it sucks to see him bounce from team. So I don't know. It just makes me happy to see him start succeeding.
yeah.
Because yeah, I know he's like the best. Okay, well, Blabber's around now, but he was like the I can't think of someone like maybe of those Medios and then for I think Mike Young was after. But Dardoch, like, there was a
Yeah,
lot of hype around him as
Mike
a
Young came through as
domestic
a
talent.
yeah. Mike Young only came through as a mechanical talent and a mechanical meta, and then Bjergsen's like, I want this guy, and then they shit the bed for a whole split, and then he's just
Yeah,
so like at least that's that's the narratives that I remember how that jumped through. But yeah, like Mitos has been like the king of NA, at least natural NA talent for years, and that at least you could probably run that. Mike Young has a hot moment, and then it's just Dardoch's like just the curmudgeon jungler. It's like we want this guy to run it, but it just And now we got Blabber, so it works out, I guess.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is like there was some hype around Dardoch five even play, but then teams would explode because of attitude issues, all this stuff, and the breaking point drama, etc. So it just makes me happy to see him having right and
Yeah.
like to see him doing well on a team, but also not having any of the drama associated in the past, and I hope that remains.
Yeah, well,
I like the story. Yeah.
I don't know how much you like to just speculate on psychology, but I find the Dignitas um, team like fascinating because they like I like the contender pretender narrative idea, just that tennis match to run because I find it fascinating to have someone as historically volatile as Dardoch and then someone who has just a veteranship like just I think we could. I think you could almost frame Afremu as like a goddaddy of the LCS because he's been around. He's been around forever. I would. I would almost think, especially when because Doublelift would credit Afremu as like someone that taught him a lot, and then we had Johnson with Afremu, I believe was it on Dignitas before as well, and Johnson. I think Johnson's been doing well at least in this split, but Johnson when he was with Afremu looked really good at least and just even how he acted like outside of landing phase he looked like he played really well. He had a lot of sense of agency as an AD carry when he had his power spikes, and now you have three rookies more or less with the monster uncle of Dardoch and then like the goddaddy of Afremu just like kind of running like teaching these kids and like having full like leadership agency to like coordinate this team. And so it just ends up being like the classic teaching moment is that it's better for five idiots to run into one brick wall instead of five idiots into five brick walls because at least you'll break the one wall. And that's what I think Dignitas has been showing is that if you even just have five people on the same plan, the success rate is actually stupid high compared to a much more disjointed sense of how to play the game. And I think that's Dignitas the thesis for 2021.
Sure. I would revise that thesis. I think we can be a little bit more complimentary because at the end of it, yes, they are cohesive, and I think they outperform teams that other people would say had better talent. I don't think that's like a
You haven't offended me yet, so keep going. Like
yeah. But I think more than that, I think Saligo stepped up. I mean, even over the course of the split, Fake God.
Oh yeah, no, Fake God looked like top 5 or something like that. Like he was looking solid last split.
Yeah, he had some good moments, and Saligo has a good argument as the best domestic NA mid laner, right? Scarce as they may be. So I think there's something to be said for the players having, right? Like I think Dardoch, he's always been good as an individual player. He's grown personally, it appears, right? Mm-hmm. Saligo and Fake God have grown as individuals on the Rift, right? Which is like super encouraging to see. I don't know what's going on there. Like I've heard in interviews, some of them saying that they credit Dardoch a lot for giving their team direction in terms of like what because he's a strong voice and he's picks, right? And I imagine Afro provides that mentorship on creating a good team environment and all that. It's a really interesting mix, right? So I think it's more than just like 5 people coming together. I do think there's legitimate growth out of the individual pieces as well. And when I think about contender, look, if they experience the same growth trajectory that they did over spring in summer, absolutely contender. Because at that point, they're some of the best players. But achieving that level of growth is hard. And I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's not something I would bet on if I had to.
Yeah, exactly. Keep it on Bitcoin. So
Ethereum for me, but sure, same idea.
I got both.
Similar ideas.
I got both. I was looking for like cryptocurrency mutual funds, and I don't think they exist yet. So, but yeah, I think that sort of runs the gambit for it. Do you have anything you wanted to close out for at least this interview before we sign off here?
No, I just want to thank you for reaching out. I like to do interviews because it's a chance. I think a lot of the time when we're on people, they think of this as just like this League of Legends person, and
Mhm.
we're all humans who have so much more going on. So interviews are a great opportunity to show that. And yeah, I just hope to do a good job and just bring some light to people's lives. That's at the end of the day, we're entertaining, right? So entertaining is about just making life a little bit more fun. So I hope I'm doing that for some people or not. Sorry, trying to do better, but I might not be your cup of tea. Okay, too. And yeah, I feel blessed and grateful for the opportunity to be doing this role, and gonna ride it out until I figure out what my next adventure is. So really enjoying it.
Sweet, awesome. Thank you, Kaizen. Um, yeah, so this has been Kaizen, formerly known as Primal. And if you want to catch him, you can see him this weekend on the LCS AD desk. And thank you again, sir. Have a good one.
You too. Thank you.